Hi, welcome to In a Pickle Knitting. My name is Donna, and this is a podcast about knitting, sewing, fiber-related children's literature, and some other crafty things that I get up to. I'm coming to you today on Wednesday, February 21st, 2018, from Manassas, Virginia, and welcome. If you are new, I hope that you see today something that you enjoy. If you are a returning viewer, I'm so happy that you came back, and I hope today will be a podcast that you enjoy. So I have one finished object today, about 4 works in progress, and our book, of course, and several other things. So let's go ahead and get started with that one single finished object. That first finished object is a pair of socks that I finished, and I call them my Dr. Tooth socks because they were created with yarn from Stitch Together Studio. And the name of the yarn is Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem, which is a Muppets reference. It is it's an 80-20 Super Wash Merino Nylon blend. And I added a mini skein that I dyed. It was a skein that hadn't come out the way I had wanted it to, so I just over dyed it with some pink and decided that it went well with these socks. I'm very happy with them. The fit's good. I did want to point out, now you'll see this part here and it looks strange because you can tell it has more stitches. So I wanted to tell you about a modification that I used on these socks. It's an afterthought heel and I have a high arch, and so I like to have some extra space actually going across here. And I read about from a blog online, and I'm going to put the information down here, and I will also put that in the down bar. So if you'd like to just click on that and go straight to this modification. It is not a video, it is a read through, and her Ravelry name is REENAMD. So if you wanted to find her on Ravelry, and then I think you can also link to other things that she has. But she created a way of putting some short rows in here to give a little extra fabric in this area that tends to pull, because this is where, you know, the greatest circumference is. So the pull is right there. So she suggested short rows, and I did try this, I think, just one other time, and I don't remember which pair of socks it was on. What happens with this is, if you're looking at the sock, say this way, let me see if I can get it folded so it maybe shows up. I'm not sure I can get it to look exactly like, but you'll notice it seems to pop out here. Well, that's the extra fabric that you create by putting short rows, but you can put too many and then you get a little bubble on either side, and that's what I did on these. So one is a little bit more bubbly out, I think, this one than the other, but it does make a difference. So I didn't follow it exactly the way she has you do it, only because the first time I tried it, I had a hard time. So I just switched my needles to where all of these stitches were on one needle and all of these stitches were on the other needle, because I do them 2 at a time magic loop, although for the heels they're 1 at a time because I made a long tube and had the cuff and toe in, so then I take them both off and do each heel separately. But it still was magic loop, and I found it easier for me to do the short rows that way. I just put a little marker in and tried it. So it's something that if you want to do an afterthought heel, another way of adding some extra fabric in here. And I also always do at least 4 plain knit rows here. Now this looks a little weird, I get it. I had done the cuffs in the pink and the toes in the pink. I had a 20-gram mini skein, and I realized, though I wanted to do the heels in the pink, it wasn't going to be enough yarn. And I really wanted to use it, so I decided I would put a stripe here and then finish it out in the regular yarn. I could have just done it all in this yarn, but I wanted the pink there. So I've been making some strange looking socks recently, but whatever, right? They're useful. And let me put them up close so you can get a look, see how that pops out there a little bit, but I do want it to do that for the extra space. So this is my only finished object, which is kind of sad, but I've been busy doing other things. So let's talk about some of the things that I'm knitting on right now. The first thing I'll tell you about is a pair of socks that I have been working on with a sock blank, and I did finish one of them. So I'll put it up close, and I have shown this to you twice before, and neither time did I mention that this has stellina in it, and I think maybe you could get a little glimpse of the sparkle there. You know, it's hard to get that on camera, but this yarn does have stellina in it, and I told you it was a 75-25, but it's a 75-20 nylon and 5 stellina. So this is a finished object. I am knitting these on DPNs, and I did cast the second sock on and got a little bit of the leg worked on there. And I am knitting it from this sock blank. And, oh, maybe you can see the sparkle there. Okay, that is a little bit better with the sparkle. I hope that's, I see it on the screen, so I hope you can see it. And this is from Andre Sue Knits, as is the mini, which I don't think I sat out here. But this is the mini that I did the heels, toes, and cuffs in is called Merriment. And the, I'm sorry, I've dropped it. This is called, I forget, something birds. You know, I keep a project page for everything. So if you really want to know, go to my project page and it will tell you the name of that. But it was part of a club, so it might not be something that is available, sorry to say. So I have half of a sock, half of a pair of socks, and the beginnings of another sock. So that's my first work in progress. And the second work in progress is I have worked quite a bit on my Coziest Memory blanket. I use the pattern by Kemper Ray, and I'm using a size 2 straight needle. And I've added all 24 of my mini skeins that I got in the Nora George Advent Calendar this past holiday season. So I'm going to hold it up with the 24. So each row has 6. So this top row is all the Nora George one's the second, the third, and the fourth. So this is what I've added to my blanket. I think I have 66 squares right now. And what I need to do, my plan is I need one more row of 6 at the top, and then I'm going to start working around the whole blanket. So I'm going to stick a picture or 2 in here. I took a picture of just the part that I added since the recently, and then another picture showing the whole blanket laid out on my table. So that did take a while. I hear a lot of people say how, you know, oh, I'll add another square, you know, it's just about an hour, but it takes me an hour and a half. Most definitely to, and I weave in my ends every time. Sometimes I'll go 2 or 3, whatever I'm doing that day, and then weave them all in, but I don't let them wait because I would get so depressed at the end I'd probably never finish it. So my next work in progress that I've been working on quite a bit, and you haven't seen this one, I cast it on since the last time that I talked to you, and this is another pair of socks. And we'll hold them up here. These, and let me show you what I have to come. So there's some more blue and then purple at the end. So obviously rainbow socks. These are by Wandering Wool, and let me grab that tag. The wool I'm using to make these socks comes from Wandering Wool, and it's on her North Country sock base. It's a 75-25 superwash merino nylon. And the colorway is called Rainbow, and this yarn came in 2 identical cakes of yarn, and I really liked the way that she had it set up where the string was somehow in there, and as you pulled this up, it was attached to the center pull of both of the cakes of yarn. And so it started with the red, and so you pulled it out, and that's where to start. So I decided what I would do was start where she had me starting in the center. A lot of times I do from the outside, but I like the green, blue, purple best, and I thought I'll have that on my foot where I'll more likely see it, and this is probably going to be underneath some pants or something. So even though I love these colors, but I thought I'd start with the red. And as I'm knitting red, and this is a way longer cuff than I ever knit, and I've cut the yarn, I realized, oh, there are 6 colors here, and 50 grams of each ball. I have never, to use all that yarn, I'm gonna make a 100-gram pair of socks. I don't think I've ever gone over 70. So I thought, oh no, these socks are gonna be up to my knees. What'll I do? So I'm just kind of winging it. I got a little bit past, and that's when I made my decision. I'm gonna cut the yarn and move to the next color. So I have been doing that. So I'm doing about 3-ish inches and then cutting the yarn and moving to the next one. The heel was, you know, trickier because of course you have all of this back here, and it's a slip stitch heel. I'm not doing the afterthought on this because I could have just, but then again, that was another, you know, cutting out a part. I thought this will probably just work better. So what I love about this yarn is I love the blending. Look how, well, I hope you can see how it's almost like it's a fade, like they had done a fade, or you were doing it yourself, going from you can see it especially here where the orange blends into the yellow, and then the yellow starts blending into the green. I really, really like that. I think it looks, I'm having fun knitting them and watching the colors come up. I will have to cut some off. I'll show you what I've cut off already. I've made 2 little balls. So I'm just winding them as I go. So the red's, you know, on the inside, and then the orange and yellow. You can see some of the yellow, and then the blue, green where I cut it. So I'll end up, although I'm just tying them together, but I will have 2 more little balls, and maybe I can do something with it. Maybe not, I don't know. But I'm really enjoying these, and almost done. I hope to finish them shortly. So those are my rainbow socks. And my next working project, I just started, and it is a shawl. I kind of felt, I don't know, weird without a shawl on the needles. I've had one for so long. I've always had a shawl that I was working on or about to work on. But my blanket was kind of in that space where I was, you know, doing something large and, you know, working on it every day, trying to get it done. So this shawl I want to tell you about is called Third Time's a Charm shawl, and this copy I was given free. The maker is she goes by on Ravelry Lizzie Art, and I'll put that down here, her Ravelry name, but it is, and I hope I say your name right, Elizabeth Davis de Harais, maybe. She lives in Spain, and she's a crochet designer primarily. She's been published in crochet magazines for her designing, and she's now starting, this is her first shawl pattern. And I had seen her, I follow her on Instagram, and I had seen pictures of her with the shawl, but I didn't realize it was her design, and it was just lovely photographs taken, you know, beautiful outside shots. And so she contacted me on Ravelry and asked if I would like to have a copy of her pattern, and of course I did. And she also offered one for you guys. So I'm going to be talking, excuse me, at the end about what I'm going to do for this for a giveaway. So someone can have a free copy of this pattern. It is available on Ravelry. And let me show you the yarn that I've decided to make. It's 2 colors. And I have had this yarn in my stash for a long time to make a shawl with. And I don't know why I hadn't made it yet. Just always picked something else, but I have saved this, I think, for a project. And it is this yarn. It is from, both skeins are from Vivid Yarn Studio, and she's in Canada. The purple is called Royal Purple, and the speckled one, and maybe you can see the speckles better this way. I'll turn it a few ways. The speckles are beautiful, and it's called Stardust. So I'm using these 2 colors because it is a 2-color shawl, and I'll show you the little tiny bit that I have started. And that is right here. I think, yes, I've got the right side out there for you. The shawl has some simple eyelets in it. It uses some slip stitches, and slip stitches are not hard at all. And it's garter stitch, the rest of it. So you increase on the sides. It's going to be a crescent shawl. And I was pleased to read one of the testers said it made a really longer crescent. And sometimes you have trouble getting that crescent like all the way around. And so I think it's going to be a really nice size. So I hope you'll check out her pattern. Again, I'm going to put a link to the pattern down below, whatever you call that. And I hope that you all will take a look at Third Time's a Charm shawl pattern. Isn't it lovely? And it's her first knit shawl pattern. So I also am going to start, I've already started it over in the Ravelry Group. And our Ravelry Group is called In a Pickle Knitting, and you can find it in the Groups tab by searching In a Pickle Knitting, or just Pickle, I think comes up, because I don't think anybody else has Pickle in their name for a group. So I started a thread over there, a chatter thread, to do a make-along, and it's going to be a make-along. I didn't want to limit it. I want as many people to participate as possible, so I thought I'd make it just a 2-color project make-along. So anything you're knitting that has 2 colors, 2-color mittens, color work, 2-3 color shawl, it can have 2 or more colors, and it can be any project. You can already have started it. You can be, let's say, no more than 50% done. But if you're less than 50% done or right at 50% done, go ahead and join. And if you choose to do this shawl pattern, you can enter it twice in the finished object thread. I didn't start that thread yet, but I will. And I'm going to have this make-along run from today through April 13th. And I will that day lock the thread, probably at the end of the day, lock the thread and pull a winner from both the chatter thread and the finished object thread. So you don't have to finish your object. If you're working on something maybe complicated, go ahead and talk about it in the chatter thread. But if you finish it, put it in the finished object thread too. Now I did want to mention, over in the finished object thread, when you post your picture of your final product, answer a couple of questions for people. Just, you know, if you name the pattern and maybe the yarn that you used, or if your photo comes from your project page, that'll link you back to that. Because people do have questions, and we hate for them to answer them, ask their questions in the finished object thread. That just makes pulling for the prizes a little difficult, and I don't like to ask people to delete what they've put in there. So if we'll keep all the comments over in the chatter thread, if you'll talk about your project, post pictures of the yarn you're using or the where you are in your project so far, we can have, whoops, I cannot do a podcast without dropping minimal one thing. I've already dropped 3 things. My family did always call me Grace as I grew up, because I'm not a very coordinated person, but it's also that so much stuff is piled here in front of me right now and you try not to look down at it too much. I know I do. I'm really bad at that, but anyway, sorry about dropping things. So that'll be our 2-color project, and if you do this shawl pattern, then you can enter it twice, and you can over in the finished object thread when you finish. Okay, so I think that's all I'm actually working on right now. It's time for our fiber-related children's literature book, and I'm going to start out by doing this, and I hope that I'm not doing it wrong, but I think that is the sign, or American Sign Language probably, for knit. And there's a reason that I'm doing that. Our book today is called The Mitten String, and it's written by Jennifer Rosner and illustrated by Christina Swarner. This story is wonderful. And the reason that I was showing you some sign language is because this story has a part about it that involves a mother who is deaf and her young son. The story, though, is more than that. It is about knitting, and it is about the process of gathering that wool and making it into yarn so that you can knit it and dyeing it as well. So the main character you see on the cover, her name is Ruthie, and her family raises sheep. And you'll see this, the end papers are just full of mittens. which makes sense from the title, The Mitten String. But you'll see here, this is their family farm and their sheep. And it takes us through the process of shearing the sheep and spinning the wool into yarn. And they talk about Ruthie then dyeing the yarn. And the process continues as Ruthie and her mother knit. And Ruthie always knits mittens. She knits a lot of mittens that are small because she's noticed that many children lose their mittens. And all of the people in their town have hands warmed by their mittens. And they go to town with the things that they have. They have baskets of yarn, and she also takes along her colorful mittens to sell. Well, one day as they are traveling along, they run across a woman holding a baby and a slate. And she's using the slate because she cannot neither talk nor hear, and which is, pretty smart to carry that along. And the family offers her help. She writes, what the problem is. And that night when they go to bed, Ruthie notices that the mother ties a beautiful blue string to the baby's wrist and to her wrist. And she learns that she does this so in case the baby wakes in the night, she would not hear him, that she will know that he is distressed. And in fact, that happens. He starts moving his arms, and this awakens the mother. This part of the story comes from the author's own family, as she was trying to learn about her family. And they tell you this at the very end of the book. There is an author's note. And I'd like to read you just shortly what she says. The story honors her great-great-aunt Bela and Wertheim, perhaps, who was deaf and lived in an Austrian village in the 1800s. And she had used this technique for rousing herself should the baby need care during the night. And that part of the story really charmed me because she's taken something she learned of her family and turned it into a beautiful story for others. So the baby does in fact wake, and the mother is able to comfort him. Well, Ruthie is a very ingenious little girl, and she is impressed by this and makes a mitten for baby Aaron and a larger mitten for his mother, and attaches them with a string so that she can wear a mitten over her hand, and the baby can wear a mitten too. And so she tells about, I'm not going to go on through the very last of the story, but I think that this book would be particularly suited for children, maybe 5 to about 8, perhaps even 9 as a read aloud, because stories like this are ones that sometimes younger children may not want to read, but when they hear this story, I can guarantee you they will love it. And there is a particularly wonderful quote that from the book that her mother says to Ruthie, "You make our world a bit better with every stitch," because she makes things for others. So I just love this book, and I hope that you will think about this book if you have someone you want to read to, or have a gift you want to give them. It's a beautiful story. I have a project that I'm hoping I get some time that when I finish these rainbow socks, maybe I can cast on. I know that I am trying to work on self-striping socks, but I also joined Curious Handmade Sock Society, and this beautiful winter rose socks, I fell in love with them. And I thought they really need a solid color, and most of my sock yarn is not solid color, it's striped or but I had just ordered this skein, and they came within, the pattern came out and the yarn arrived within days of each other. This yarn is from So Perfect Pearls, and she has a podcast on YouTube, and she also has an Etsy shop where she sells some yarn. Right now she's working on self-striping yarn too, I noticed. She's been posting some pictures on Instagram. This color is called Berries. It's 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, 460 yards. And that color is maybe a little, it's more like that. A gorgeous purple. Now, I have a problem with purple. I buy a lot of purple yarn, I find. In fact, I had put a bunch of it out when I was looking for yarn to do these socks with. I was just kind of grabbing out different sock yarns, and a lot of purples ended up in the same place. I need to stop buying purple, but for some reason I can't. So I love this, and I'm thinking that this would be really pretty in the winter rose socks. So that's sort of what's coming up when I get some things done and off of my needles. I don't like to have too much out there because it starts to make me feel anxious if I have too many things going and if I start having trouble getting to them, I get a really nervous feeling. So I don't want that to happen. This next little piece is something I wanted to add, not on a weekly basis, but just today, because I've listened to podcasts and I've heard this come up twice recently, and I don't even remember which podcasts they were, but they were talking about sock yarn and it having bamboo. And one podcaster did say, well, you know, that might make them stronger. So just from my personal experience, not the first pair of socks I ever knit, but really close to the first few pair, I knit from yarn, the same yarn in a different colorway. This is Wisdom Yarn Saki Bamboo, and it's 50% merino wool, 25% nylon, and 25% bamboo. And I knit this pair of socks. I didn't bring them both, but I brought this one. These are my most worn socks. I knit them early on and I wear them the most. What I would like to say about this yarn, first of all, it was early on and I used to knit on size 2 needles, so you will notice the gauge is fairly large. This was my first or second afterthought heel, and I had done this in a rib pattern. You'll see they're fuzzy. Well, they've been washed and worn a lot, more than any pair of socks that I own. They are my favorites. But the wear, there's nothing going wrong with the bottom of these socks. And I wear my socks out on the ball of the foot and the bottom of the heel. So you'll see the bottom of this sock looks great. There's nothing down here wearing. So my personal experience is that the bamboo, or that combination with it being less merino and then the nylon and the bamboo, does make for a long wearing sock. The other thing about these, they're very soft. There's nothing scratchy about them to me whatsoever, and while my bottom of my feet may not be that sensitive, I'm really sensitive. My skin is really sensitive to all kinds of things, and so I think they'd bother me if there was anything harsh about them. So my suggestion is, if you are ever looking at a sock yarn that contains bamboo, it might be a good thing to add to the sock. They seem just ever so slightly lustery. That just it's not a dull color. It's not shiny, but it's not a dull color. So I would recommend them. And this particular one, they always put a little picture, but this is not this colorway that they've pictured here. It's almost more like this colorway, but they make beautiful stripes. Okay, so this is just wanted to put a little something out there for those people maybe looking for a sock yarn. And this particular skein, I've had for about 6 months, so it's not really, really old. And it was $17 at my local yarn shop. So that the price point is pretty good for something that has lasted a long time. Well worth it. We do have some giveaways today that I want to announce. And first of all, our winner from the sock thread that we keep going all the time over in the Ravelry Group. I pulled somebody the last time I podcast and I have never heard from them, very sadly. And so I put the same numbers in. It was from 192 to 261, and I drew another name, and I drew number 226, and that is BORKP. So I'll put that down here. And she knit some socks and put them in that finished object thread. If you will contact me on Ravelry, so my Ravelry ID is CLAUSSDK, and if you will send me a private message with your full name and your mailing address, I will send you out a a skein of sock yarn, and I did not bring it with me over here. Let me run get it. So here's the sock yarn I'm going to send you. It's 250-gram skeins of the Bergeret de France, and it's in the Emperor Gris colorway, and I have seen this knit up and makes a beautiful pair of socks. I have 2 more skeins of this that does the same sort of pattern but a little different shade. So I know that this is, if you're a sock knitter, you would probably enjoy making these. And if you do knit it up, these are self-patterning, so you can enter them in our sock along, the finished object thread. You can enter them twice because they're the self-striping yarn. So if you'll get hold of me, please, I would love to send this out to you. Okay, we have some other giveaways. Now, first of all, on YouTube, last podcast, I had us put comments down below if you wanted to win the project bag that I had been showing on my tutorial. And the handle is inside the bag, and so is the little tassel. I just took them off so it'll be easier packing, so it's not missing this. It's just down in here. So I like doing that on YouTube. First of all, I'm able to comment, which when we do another kind of prompt over in Ravelry, I can't really say anything back to anybody, and sometimes there's a question or just something I want to comment back. So I really liked on YouTube that I could comment back, and I did try to comment on, you know, many of your suggestions, because what the prompt was if you had a story or book that you'd read that had a twist, if you tell me about it, because I really like books like that. And I got so many lovely suggestions. And if you like that kind of book, you might want to read through the comments too, because there were lots and lots of titles given. I will tell you that already I have read one of them. It's called Fingersmith. It's by Sarah Waters. This is a book I never would have chosen. It's just, it's not, I usually read, you know, police procedural sort of things and certain authors. So I probably would never have picked this, and I loved it. I did it on audiobook with Audible, and the narration was really well done. This story has a twist. It has a couple of them. And you sort of think, you know, one's going to happen, which does, but then there are more. So I really, really enjoyed this. Thanks so much for that book suggestion. I have put a bunch of them down in my little wish list, so I will be listening to more of them. I usually listen to audiobooks or podcasts while I'm knitting, so or sewing. So I do like to have lots and lots of books. Another, there were several that's like, oh, duh, of course, I love that story. Presumed Innocent, Agatha Christie, I'm her biggest fan, and Then There Were None has, you know, a wonderful twist to it, and right now I'm just my brain, you know, it's so funny, you know what you want to say, but when you're doing it on and filming, I don't know, something leaves my brain. Another book that I really appreciated hearing, because it is one of my absolute favorites, but it's a children's literature book, and it was a library media specialist who still is working as such in a school library, and it's Mo Willems. That is not a good idea. And let me tell you, the children, well, they adore Mo Willems, pretty much anything he writes, but this story, oh my goodness, they are so participatory, and it is a wonderful read aloud, and it has a definite twist. So that was a great suggestion. So thank you for all of your suggestions. And the other thing I liked about doing this on YouTube was you can, I forget the name of it, but there's a way that you can get a random comment picked for you, and it was so easy. It eliminated all the double and triple. So if somebody, you know, replied back to me, or somebody else replied to you, it didn't double that up so that they were there twice. So that was really nice, and that's why I felt so comfortable commenting to everyone. And then it just tells you exactly who they picked, and they picked, although I won't know. It's not like when on Ravelry, you know, sometimes you can click to the user. I don't know who it is, but it is Alex P. And she suggested the book Death by Cashmere has a twist, and it sounds like it has a fiber-related component too. But it was comment number 134, not counting any multiple entries. So Alex P., if you could go to Ravelry and send me a private message. But if you're not on Ravelry, because again, the YouTube, it might not be people on Ravelry, you can use my Gmail. I do read my Gmail pretty regularly, like almost every day. I try to read it. And that's annapicklenitting@gmail.com. And I'll put that down here in case I've said it wrong. But I think, I'm pretty sure it's annapicklenitting@gmail.com. And you can send me a message there. And I will be sure to be looking for it and want to send you this bag. So Alex P., congratulations. So happy that so many people entered that giveaway. Our next one is what I want to do a giveaway for the pattern that I already told you by Elizzy Art on Ravelry, and it is the Third Time's a Charm shawl pattern. And whoever wins, I will contact Elizabeth and let her know who to gift that pattern to. So that's really fun and easy on Ravelry because you don't have to wait. There it just is in your mailbox. But I'm going to make this this giveaway is going to have two things in it. The other thing is this gorgeous, you'll see Raymond Briggs snowman on this fabric. That's a favorite wordless picture book. And this was made by Ellie at crafthousemagik.com. She put an adorable little snowman progress keeper on the zipper along with this pretty ribbon. This is a nice sized bag, and I love light interiors where you can see everything. You'll see there is her sewn on label, Craft House Magic. She's over in the UK and she has a podcast. I have watched her podcast from podcast number 1 and I love her podcast. She cheers me up and she is so talented. Oh my gosh, the bobbin lace that she makes. Anyway, wonderful podcast. I highly recommend it. And she has an Etsy shop where she sells not only progress keepers, handmade project bags, but also she has started dyeing yarn. And I have some of her yarn on my shelf right now, 2 different skeins of it. And it's beautiful. So I'm going, this is kind of a long story how I ended up with this bag, but Ellie gave this as a prize to one of my viewers and someone who views her as well. She won this bag and she's over here in the US and it didn't come. And so she contacted Ellie and Ellie said, well, just keep it and send her, well, she sent her another one out, but they both arrived. So when she contacted Ellie, Ellie said, just keep it or give it to someone. And our lovely subscriber offered it to the podcast for a gift, and that was so lovely. And I'm not saying your name because I didn't ask if I could, sorry, but it was a very generous viewer, then mailed it to me. So I have this for a prize, and along with the shawl, this is a bag you could even keep that shawl in while you worked on it. These 2 prizes will be for our 2,500 subscriber giveaway, and we're about 60 away, so it's probably not smart to go ahead and just do it, but I wanted to do the YouTube again. And the reason is because we're celebrating the 2,500 when we get there. We're at 2,460 or 2,440. I think it was about 60 away. So, you know, hopefully we'll get to 2,500, but whatever, we're just going to have this giveaway anyway, and I'm going to do it on YouTube. So down below, if you would like to win a copy of this beautiful pattern and this beautiful bag, if you will respond to the prompt. What did I decide to do? Oh, since there's a snowman bag, I thought the prompt might be, what do you like to do on a snow day? Now, snow days in my life meant nothing to me because I grew up in Colorado and we never had such a thing. We went to school, they put chains on our school buses, and we never had a snow day. We went home early once in a blizzard, but that's it. Then I became a teacher and I ended up in Virginia, and Virginia loves snow days. When it snows here, it cripples this area. And it's really a good idea that they do close the schools because the road networks of people who have to get to work are so complicated by, you know, school buses and the number of people on the roads getting children to and from school. So they do close school a lot. And as a teacher, those became the best days of my life. It's like a gift from God that you have this extra day that you can do whatever you want with it. And I'm kind of a strange person, so I always had rules about snow days of what I had to do. I had to clean something in my house, which was a good thing. I had to cook something. I love to bake, but I don't really like to cook. And so I had to cook something for dinner. And I had to do some schoolwork because after all, they were paying me. So it's good to catch up on your schoolwork and not save all that for the end of the week or on the weekend. I had to exercise, so I'd do the treadmill or one of my exercise videos, but then I could do whatever I wanted to do. So my favorite of those days were, my husband leaves really early for work, that he was already gone, they called school, and I was home alone. So I still got up. I wasn't one to turn on the news and see, oh, school's closed and go back to sleep. Oh no, I was already up and I did all my have-to things. And then if it was one of those days that wasn't a real snow day, because actually the roads were fine, I'd go to the craft store and I'd go to the fabric store and I'd get myself some lunch to eat out. So those were my favorite days in the world, a snow day. So what do you like to do on your snow day? You don't have to tell as much as I did. But if you'll just put that below, that will be your entry. And right before the next podcast, that morning that I'm going to podcast, I will, you can't lock that thread that I know of. Maybe there's a way to turn it off, I don't know. But I'll just that day do that whole YouTube random comment thing and come up with somebody to win that lovely prize. Phew, sorry that took so long. Okay, now it's time for what am I grateful for this year. Gratitude or gratefulness is my word of the year. And today I am particularly grateful for my sister. My sister lives out in Elizabeth, Colorado, and my parents live in Aurora, and so she's about an hour away. She's a busy person. She helps out an awful lot with her granddaughters with their childcare. And she has a job, and she's just a very, very busy person. She's not a knitter, but she's a sewer. She and I are both sewists, and she does many, many other crafts. The reason today in particular I'm grateful for her is that my father had back surgery a week ago, and a few complications since, and she's there caring for my mom, helping my mom out, trips back and forth to the hospital, which fortunately they live so close to their hospital. He's in the rehab now, and they're really close to that as well. So, but my sister's there, and my brother as well. He's helping out too. Excuse me. Sorry. But I'm grateful that I have siblings who are able to help out when it's really hard for me, being 1,700 miles away, to be able to help this time. This was a hard time for me to be gone right now. So I would have if she'd not been there. So I am grateful that she's there helping and that my brother's able to help as well. So that's what I'm grateful for today. Now, on that theme, to help express my gratitude to my sister, let me do a little backstory here. Last year, my sister made something for me. And I said she's very crafty. She made this bag for me out of a book. She bought a book and took it apart and created a bag for me. And she put pins inside of it from the Wizard of Oz and pockets. And she worked so hard on this. She added special little gifts for me inside. And this was for my birthday. She really worked hard on this. Her husband helped with it as well. And of course she did this because I am a huge fan of The Wizard of Oz. When I grew up, no DVDs, no VHS, no cable television, and The Wizard of Oz came on once a year. It was around Easter Sunday, and I never missed it. And I own, of course, copies of it. My daughter is just as big a fan as am I. So my sister made that for me. Well, I wanted to make something for her right now, and I couldn't make something like that, but I did make her a bag. I've been doing a lot of sewing, so I want to share what I've made with you. And now those of you who have watched the tutorials on making a 3-zipper project bag may have noticed that I added a 4th to that series, with just some ways you could modify the bag and not make it exactly to the pattern. So this is an example of another way it can be modified, and one of the modifications is one that I showed. This is, I quilted this fabric just very simply with a grid. I put batting behind the fabric, and I had another piece of fabric that I drew lines on, and I stitched it from underneath so that I would have a quilted fabric. So that gave the bag a little strength. And as I said, my sister doesn't knit, so I thought this might be a good little cosmetic bag for when she travels. So inside, I did show you how to put the vinyl fuse to the fabric. So this is vinyl fused fabric, and so it'll somewhat, you know, you could have little spills and things and wipe it off. And so I think this would be a nice cosmetic bag. So I made this for her, and then I'm also have made for her a kit to make her own, and links to the tutorial, so that because she does so, she may like to make one or more of these for herself. So that's one thing that I was working on while I wasn't knitting. I'm the worst at making those tutorials, and in that my filming I know is not great. I do my best, but I know it's not great, and you don't get to see the worst of it. But in doing that tutorial where I was using this teapot fabric, I ended up having to do it 3 times. Not every part of it, but I would, you know, something in the filming would be wrong, and so I just cut another bag out and start again. Well, I ended up with 3 bags like this. Let me show you this one. This one has the zipper on the front like usual, and I did put a little teacup progress keeper on there. And you know, it has a handle, but on the back side it has the 2 pockets, so you can put your glasses, a little pattern there. And inside it does have a zipper as usual, but I have the yarn guide. So this is a bag that has lots and lots of the components of the 3-zipper bag, and I'm going to be putting this in my Etsy shop, and I'll talk about a little bit later when I'm going to do that. So this is one bag. If you are at all interested and go on there, please be sure and read the description, because these 3 bags look an awful lot alike, but they are a little bit different, and I'll show you straight off. This one's a little shorter, so, and it's also deeper. So this one's more narrow at the bottom, the box bottom, so this holds something wider, but it loses height then. So this is very similar. Pocket on the back, that part's the same, and I think inside, oh, a difference inside, we have the yarn guides, but it's a patch pocket, not a zipper pocket inside. So that's a big deal, if that mattered to you, that you're buying one with the zipper pocket, not the patch pocket, or vice versa. This one also has a little progress keeper, and it's a little teapot. Okay, so they're very, very similar, and then there's an even smaller one. Okay, again, it has the pockets on the back. So all 3 have zipper pocket on the front, and I'll show you inside. They might not all be exact same fabric inside, the pockets. This one has a little teacup on as a progress keeper, and we've got, again, a patch pocket, because I had to do the patch pocket part twice, because I don't remember why now. Well, one time I filmed the entire part with my thing upside down. Thankfully, I figured out how to change that. You know, thank you Google, to how to fix that, because I tell you, if there's a mistake, I can make it 5 times. So those 3 are the teapot bags, and I'm going to put those in the Etsy shop. And then I also have this bag. This is a bee bag. Okay, the fabric's called Queen Bee, and I've got 2 different. I've got you know, like the reverse print. And inside the pocket on the front is some honeycomb, and inside the lining is a honeycomb, but this does not have a zipper pocket inside. It has a patch pocket. Okay, this is when I had cut the fabric out. It's a pretty big patch pocket. I had cut the fabric out a long time ago and then just never sewed it up, so it was already cut out that way. So I just went ahead and made it that way with, I think it was before I cut it out before I even put zippers inside. I don't know. But this has gold tone on the little hardware here, because I had found these gold couple bees to make progress keepers from. So I'll be having this in the Etsy shop. And then I have 2 cupcake bags. The first one is very squishy, much squishier feeling than some of mine because I think I did double batting double batting. And there is a handle. Oh, it's right here, but it doesn't have a label on it. See? How many things can I drop? Story of my life. It doesn't have a label on this tag because I made this before I had labels. So I'm going to make a new handle and put the label on it. That's why you don't see one here. It has a little cupcake progress keeper. Be still. And there's no zipper on the outside. And it has a patch pocket on the inside. So this fabric's on the inside. And the lining is this frosting fabric. Okay, so this is a cupcake bag, but then I have a different cupcake bag. Okay, so you notice the different contrast. Got pink contrast and no zipper on the outside here. This one has a canvas, and it's a kind of a off-white canvas. And we've got a little cupcake here again. Zipper on the front, and let's look at what's inside there. Oh, the frosting fabric inside there. I can't find that get that frosting fabric anymore. So this has a zipper pocket inside, with again the frosting, and over here it has yarn guides. Those little, the first time you undo those snaps, they're a little bit tough, and then they get right away much easier. So this one has yarn guides inside, but still, you know, it's really just a small project bag. It'll fit 2 cakes of yarn in there for socks or something, but they're not huge, and I'll put the measurements on the Etsy shop. And I have already sold this particular bag on Etsy, but when I was selling them, I had one that I'd run out of, I didn't have another pink zipper, and when I did the update, they hadn't come, and then they came, so I finished this bag. So this is no zipper on the front, it's a patch pocket inside, and I know it's Valentine themed, but I think from the outside it doesn't look terribly Valentine's-y, but it is. That was its intention. There are little hearts in there, and has a cute little heart lobster claw clip on here with a white, so this will be in the shop too. And the other things that are going to be in the shop I want to talk about now. These are going to be some kits to make project bags. That's our prize that's going to be offered over in the, well, I'm going to be talking about it in a minute. That's another giveaway. It's from the project bag. I've lost my words. Our threads over there in the Ravelry group, the chatter thread and the finished object thread for project bags. I have already drawn, and we'll have winners for some kits to make another project bag. So I want to show you those kits, because if you're a winner, I'm going to ask you which one you wanted, and whatever is left, because I made quite a few, because I wanted there to be choice, whatever's left, I'm going to put in the Etsy shop. So let me get them. Now the kits include the following things: the fusible batting that we use, the fusible interfacing, and there's some craft fuse that we use, not very much of, but that will be included. The little hardware, the D-ring and this little lobster clasp will be included, and 3 zippers. 2 of them are the 14-inch handbag zippers that have the larger pull, and the zipper on the inside, and sometimes, well, even on this bag, I even put on the outside the smaller zipper, but I've given you 2 handbag zippers for these 2 and the smaller one for inside. And then enough fabric for a main fabric, a contrast fabric, a lining fabric, and these pockets have to be lined, so a pocket lining fabric. Sometimes the lining fabric and the pocket lining fabric are the same fabric, and sometimes that's white, and sometimes it's different. Sometimes there's a print or a solid that's for the lining and a white for the pocket lining. So it varies. And I'm also going to tell you that every once in a while when I was putting it together, I would have a small amount, you know, maybe a piece this big or, you know, this big left over that I don't have more of the fabric. So I've just kind of put that in there too, because you never know when you need an extra piece of fabric or you make a mistake or something. So I have Sometimes there's an extra little piece of fabric, but I've gone through it several times to make sure there is enough fabric. So I'm going to show you the kits this way. I'm not going to show you all the fiber fill and stuff. I just want to show you the prints. And this first set that I have is, I brought this bag out. I'm not selling this bag because I'm not happy with the interfacing that I used in the bottom of it. But I love this fabric combination. I don't have this fabric anymore, this polka dot in that color. And I've been to 2 quilt shops trying to find it. So, and the place where I got it is out. So I substituted with this fabric here, which is really nice white with some cute little blue dots. So this is a kit, and I called this blue and red cherries. Okay, so if you're a winner and this is what you want, you tell me blue and red cherries. But that's a kit that could be in the shop, Etsy shop. And next, you've seen that teapot or teacup set. And this is one where you don't see 4 fabrics because there's enough of this for pocket lining and into contrast fabric. And I've got green and pink zippers for that. So this is teapots. And then I have this one. And these are also cherries on beige fabric and a coral. This is the contrast fabric. Whoops. So I would say that's orange cherries maybe. And then I showed you the bee bag that I made, and I have fabric to make one of those, but the contrast fabric, I actually did just get some. But when I put the kit together, I didn't have it. This is another contrast fabric that went with this. So if you either buy this or you choose it because you're a winner, I can substitute the contrast that you saw in the sample I showed. So this is Queen Bee. You see her crown. And this is one of my favorites, but it might be everybody else's least favorite. I love to make macarons. And this is macaron fabric, and of course they're always in such beautiful colors. And so I liked this green as a contrast. And what I have for lining and pocket lining is a white tone on tone. And for this one, I picked out some of the zippers to be colors that were in the fabric. So maybe that's too zany for you. I have black zippers, I have white zippers, so that's one that you could substitute too. But I kind of liked those bright colors. But then you've noticed some of my socks lately, so what can I say? My very first Etsy shop update, I made drawstring project bags out of this fabric. And I ran out of this contrast, but I ordered some more and just got it. So I do have fabric to make the 3-zipper bag in the same colors. And I have white and periwinkle as the zippers. So this is Alice. And I have a second Alice. This is a different fabric called Wonderland as well. This is kind of a mint green and just a coral, or it's pink, but it's a little more coral. So we have a contrast fabric, a lining fabric, and a pocket lining. And I have these zippers to go with it, which are a good match. So this is, let's see, Periwinkle Alice and Mint Alice. And finally, I showed you my bag from bags from Cupcake Fabric, and I told you I don't have more of that frosting fabric and haven't been able to find it. But you might notice here that there are breast cancer awareness ribbons on a lot of the cupcake designs, or most of them are decorated that way. And so I found it's not by the same manufacturer, but it's a really nice match, these pink ribbons. So the pinks were the same, and I had the off-white canvas for the contrast, so the pink is the lining, and then white for to line the pockets. So this is Cupcake, and I have brown and pink zippers for that. So those are the kits that I will be having, whatever isn't taken on the two prize winners. And I'm going to tell you, if I don't get a prize, if I don't get a response fairly soon, I'm just going to put them all in the Etsy shop update, because I don't want to hold on to that for too long. And I will just make new kits for, some of these fabrics I have and can make another kit, and others, it'll just reduce the selection. So hopefully, if you're a winner, you'll get hold of me quickly so you have more choice. So let's talk about who won those. So over in our project bag thread, and if you haven't looked at that, I would look at the finished objects. There are some beautiful project bags. Some were made my pattern, some other patterns, and they're all wonderful. There was a great one made out of denim with the even riveted the pockets. I loved that. It was a really big bag and very sturdy. But gorgeous bags over there, and it just, I can't tell you how much it pleases me that to see bags that I know that you followed along my tutorial and made the bags, and they've come out so nice, and I just feel pride for everyone who made them, and it is so thrilling. It's hard to put into words. So I'm so happy that people saw it and were inspired and encouraged to make something that they hadn't made before. So it was great. And I hope it keeps going on. But the winners in the finished objects thread is number 26, Chris 54890. So I'll put that here. And in our chatter thread, it was number 8, Pat, Patko. If you two, Chris and maybe it's Pat, will send me a Ravelry message, a private message on Ravelry, giving me your full name and your mailing address and which kit you would like. Now, please say 2, because if the other person, has already responded before you, give me a choice of 2 that you would like to have. And I will get them mailed out to you just as soon as I hear from you. I will get over to the post office and mail those out. So those are project bag kits. And I'm going to take a look here at all of my notes and see. Oh, I see right now something. I don't even have to look at my notes. Here's something that I left out. In that Etsy shop update, I am going to, I have been dyeing some yarn. And I have one set that I'm particularly pleased with. And I have only dyed, I've dyed 3, but I was really pleased with this one. And I've ordered some more yarn, should be here tomorrow, so I'll be able to go ahead and get some more made up. And I want to show it to you. It's for St. Patrick's Day, and I'm calling it Erin Go Bra. And it is a micro stripe, sort of, here, with a mini skein in the dark color to pull out that St. Patrick's color. Here is what it looks like knit up. I used a 1.5 needle and 60 stitches, cast on 60 stitches, so you can kind of see what that looks like, a little bit micro stripey. And I did put some speckles, and I added just the itsy bitsy tiniest bit of yellow, because that's our gold at the end of the rainbow. And while I was knitting, I did knit one in here. Oh, I think it's right there, my lights. I don't know if you'll be able to see that little yellow one there. There's a pot of gold in that sock. So this is a set, and I hopefully will get some more dyed and be able to offer this in the Etsy shop update. I also did another skein, and I don't think I'm going to offer this one just because while I like it, I think I'm just going to knit up with it. It may be too, I don't know. Bright's not exactly the word I'm looking for. It has more chartreuse in it. I think I might have liked more of the darker color green in this one, but you try it out, you never know. I never know what's going to come out, and I just always like to knit it up a little bit so I can make sure that I'm offering you something that's not going to, that you'll know what it's going to be if you like the looks of that. Okay, so the Etsy shop, a link will be down below, but there's nothing there. So that's just to be prepared. Today is Wednesday, and I think Sunday afternoon at 2. So that's Sunday, February 25th, 2018 at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will go ahead and put the bags I showed you. And if I get any more done, I do have a couple cut out. I may add whatever I have a chance to get done. A little bit of yarn, and those kits to make project bags, the ones that haven't been selected by our 2 winners. I will put the rest of them in there. And I am continuing to work on some kits. I ran out of, what did I run out of? Oh, the interfacing. So I've ordered some more interfacing. So, you know, if that comes, but I'll tell you that in the future, I am going to just, if I make kits, I'm just going to throw them in the Etsy shop without announcing it out here. So, and I don't even know, maybe those won't be popular. When I was making them, I thought of making them as a prize, I thought, well, I can't just make, you know, one or two, because you need to have a choice in that. You might look and say, oh, that is the ugliest fabric, I don't like it. So I thought, no, I'll make a couple, and then, you know, I can always sew them up myself if the ones that aren't picked. And then I thought, no, I could sell them. And then somebody, I think it was in the YouTube comments, said, hey, why don't you take your scraps and sell some kits in Etsy shop? I thought, you know, great minds just must be running. So, but who knows? They have, you know, I can't price them less than I am, because there is a lot of material in there, and yet it seems like, well, you know, you'll look at the price and say, well, I can just go over and buy a project bag for that, and you can, and then I have to sew it myself. But those of you who've made project bags, you know that's true. Absolutely. The kits do not include that wash away tape that you use for the zippers, because you have to buy a whole roll, and the cheapest I found it is $7, and you know, you only need a little bit of it, so you have to buy that. I didn't put thread in either, so those kinds of notions you'll need, but otherwise the stuff's in there to make a bag. So presuming you have those little notions, you can make a bag from it. So I feel like I've just blathered on and on and on about this, and it's very uncohesive. And I know I typically am, but I feel more so today, which I'm so sorry. But it's just kind of the way my brain is today. Let me take a look at my notes. All right, I looked at my notes, and there's one thing I didn't mention, which I will in a second. I am going to put at the end, list our giveaways and my contact information for you at the very end, where I usually have some pictures, and I'll probably have some pictures there too. But I did want to say, I've had this mentioned to me at least 4 times since I started podcasting, because of the children's literature part of the segment. I've had at least 4 people say, why don't I read aloud on the podcast that and I know, I love being read to, and adults do like to be read to, but that violates copyright laws. You will find it on YouTube. You will find lots of things out there, but part of librarianship training is training in copyright laws, and you're kind of supposed to be the copyright police at your school. Not that you enforce it, but you do want to educate the staff in copyright and fair use laws. And so really that's a creative work, and when you read it aloud, you're using that creative work in a way that, unless you have permission for, you shan't do. So I can't do that. You know, it's the same with music. Unless you wrote it and performed it without permission from the artist who created it and performed it, you can't use their music. It's theirs, and you need to have permission to use it. Now, YouTube, you'll hear there's a little theme song, a little jingle at the beginning of this. iMovie has some copyright-free music and themes that you can use. So that's why there is some music there, but without permission, I can't do that. So I'm sorry that I can't read that, reading the books out. It is permissible to, you know, I've occasionally read, you know, a tiny little piece, very tiny piece that's not taking the substantive part of the work. You know, you can do tiny bits like that. And for the purpose that I'm using it for, I'm not selling something, and I'm not selling the book or trying to take their sales away. In fact, I'm certain that hearing about the books might increase some sales sometimes. So that's actually a good thing, but still, it's not my creative work. So you can't take that. So sorry about that. And then I want to say at the end, we'll have contact information and show notes. I stopped doing them a while back. They take a lot of time, and I've just, after spending all the time when you're done with the podcast editing, and it's not the editing part is not the uploading part. That's not an issue. First of all, my computer's pretty fast, uploads, in about 30 minutes, and you're not doing anything then. You're just telling the computer to do, it's going to talk to YouTube and they're going to do their thing. That's not the time. The sitting down and listening through the podcast and editing things out and in and getting titles put in and the music added to the beginnings and the end, that takes a while. And once I've done all that, just to have to sit down and find all the links and post them in, I'm sorry, it became too much for me. But I am going to put right underneath here if there's a specific link. That said, if I say So Perfect Pearls and I put it up here and tell you who they are, it is so easy. You just go on Google and type it in and you're going to find their Etsy shop. You're going to find where to get that stuff or whatever kind of shop they happen to have. So that's just as easy really as clicking. It's what I do when I see any podcast. I don't even look for any links. I just type it in and find it. It's so easy today to find things. So that's something that it takes my time, extra time, and I already given a lot of time just to do this part that I just don't have that extra time. It takes away my knitting and my sewing time. I'm sorry. And I'm sorry if that's a deal breaker that you can't, you don't want to watch if I can't give that to you. I am sorry, but there has to come a point that I'm done with this part of it, and that's where my done line came. So I hope you are having fun sewing or making a 3-zipper project bag or knitting or crocheting, weaving, spinning, doing anything fun that you like to do. I hope you're having fun with it, and I will see you very soon. Bye-bye.